Hi, good morning, amazing news. So we're trying this all over again. I had some technical difficulties earlier and I had to pop back in here and do this all over again. And so we're going to be having a good time with each other today. The topic of discussion today is universal laws. Absolutely one of my favorite topics of discussion, one of my absolute favorite things to study as well. This is one of those things that when I really started to understand this, when I dug into study of these, and I really started to understand these things, I saw massive transformation in my life, not just in terms of financially, but in terms of my emotional state, the way I thought, my philosophies, the way how I treat people, just so many different things that were altered when I really started to learn these laws. And so this is going to be our topic of discussion today. If you have not yet started studying universal laws, this is a perfect place for you to begin. Today, we are just going to be looking at the most part, the introduction for universal laws, and then throughout the course of the next few weeks, and more specifically on Mondays, we are going to be digging into the universal laws a bit more specifically. You can of course go ahead of me and you can study these on your own. There are a lot of amazing resources out there, some of which I'll discuss with you later on in the live today. So let's jump on right into it. So let's go. Now, Dr. Ronald Von Braun had this to say. He said, the natural laws of the universe are so precise that we don't have any difficulty sending people to the moon, and we can time the landing with the precision of a fraction of a second. Now, laws are considered to be God's modus operandi. This is pretty much how God does what he does. It's how he functions. And so he governs everything and he controls everything that he does by laws. The law is the unified or orderly method of the omnipotent God. Now, it is said that order is God's first law. No, God is not one of disorder or chaos. He is an orderly God. And so when we look even at creation, we can see this nicely demonstrated because we can see throughout history, if we look at even today, if we look into creation and we look at how God sets things up, we realize that there is a system and there's a structure behind everything. Just take, for example, if you look at the human body, for example, we recognize that there are systems, and within these systems, we have different organs and we have different things that are taking place in the systems. And so we recognize, even just from our own bodies, that God is indeed a God of order and he does things in an orderly way. We also know that if you look at the growth process for a seed, it's going to be pretty much the same regardless of what the seed looks like. And we know that in order for a seed to grow, we have to plant that seed in soil. That's something that we know. We know that if we get this seed and we put it on a windowsill, for example, it's never going to grow. And that's by law. And so we understand some of these things naturally. We know that God is indeed a God of order. So let's keep going. A law is something that happens every time with every person everywhere. Laws are impartial and unbiased. Laws are inflexible. Very important for us to note. No, it's not like God sets up a law for some and then a law for others. It's unbiased. It's going to work for you, for me, and for anyone that takes advantage of them. Now, let's just talk about a few things that you may be able to relate to naturally. And so as we get into the content further, then you can relate back to some of these things. Let's take, for example, the law of gravity. The law of gravity is not biased in that it will work for some and not work for the others. If I release this pencil, it's gonna fall every time, every single time. It's not going to float 2% of the times or 3% or whatever. It's gonna fall every single time, 100% of the time. And again, the law reminds us that we are reminded that the law is unbiased. And that means it doesn't matter who, it is always going to function in the absolute same way for everyone and for everything. So let's say, for example, and this is going to be a very extreme example. Let's say we have a serial killer, and maybe he's a serial rapist or a pedophile, or whatever, which is a very extreme example, I know. But if this serial killer, serial rapist, or whatever goes to the top of a 10-story building, and for some reason, is either he's shoved off, he steps off, or whatever, if this person, this serial killer, somehow falls off this 10-story building, what is going to happen with this person? Is this person going to float? No, we all know that he's plummeting down. And of course, there's no expecting that person to survive because that body is going to pretty much splash, right? And so that is going to happen with the serial killer, serial rapist, whatever you want to call him. But the same thing is going to happen for a holy bishop, a bishop who has been touching the lives of thousands of people in the kingdom of God and has just this amazing heart and amazing soul. If the bishop somehow gets onto the top of this 10-story building and somehow steps off, falls off, whatever it may be, the exact same thing is going to happen with the bishop. The law is not biased because he's holy and he's God-fearing and he's chosen by God and all of this. The law is going to work the same exact way. He's not going to float. He's going to just the same. Now, let's take an innocent, sweet little baby who doesn't know anything about danger. This baby gets on to the top of this 10-story building, somehow falls off. The very same thing is going to happen to this baby. It does not matter that the baby is ignorant of the law. And so one of the things we see as well coming out is that ignorance of the law does not change the law. And so it is very important for us to acknowledge that because you may be ignorant to something, it does not mean it's not going to be in operation. And so it's very important that we do learn these laws so that we can use them to our advantage. All right? Let's keep going. Laws are impacting every aspect of your life, from your finances to your relationships, to your health, your business, personal skills. Literally everything in your life is being based on laws. And so if something is so important, if something has the power to impact every single aspect of your life, I think it makes a whole lot of sense that you put some study into this thing. I think it makes a whole lot of sense that you really spend some time to learn how this thing works. When we live in harmony with the laws, we win. When we disobey or we live in violations to the laws, we lose. So if you live in harmony with the laws, you're going to win. If you live in disobedience or in violation of the laws, you're going to lose. And so that's what we've found happening with a lot of persons. Because you don't know these laws, you are violating them. And so we see that the vast majority of the world is being filled with failure and mediocrity. And when you see there's so many things happening where people are getting results that they don't want, it's a result of persons not understanding that their lives are being governed by laws. And if they don't understand these laws and they're in violation to these laws, then their lives are not going to be what they want them to be. We cannot obey the laws if we don't know what they are. We must first, therefore, learn the laws to live in harmony with them. And this is a very important point to note. If you don't know what the laws are, how in the world are you going to live in harmony with them? It's very easy that we are going to be violating them because we don't know what they are, and so we are going to violate them. Let's take, for example, an electrician. An electrician doesn't pray and beg that electric energy is going to make up its mind to come and serve him. What he does first is that he learns the law of conduction and the law of transmission, and then he goes to work manipulating electric energy. And so as he does this, he's now able to set things up so that he can flip on a switch and light comes. He's able to set things up so he can plug things and hey, power comes into different stuff. But if he doesn't understand the law, he's going to do some stuff that's going to get himself electrocuted, right? And so we understand that we have to first understand how to properly use these energies, use these powers before we go and try and use them. It's the very same thing with how we are designing our lives. A lot of us, we just run out there and we're doing stuff, and we find that we run into a lot of stress, a lot of struggle, a lot of overwhelm, and life just doesn't seem to go as we want it to go. But as we spend time studying these laws and as we spend time digging into these materials, then life starts to change. We start now, like the electrician, to be able to nicely manipulate these powers, and we're able to then create the lifestyle that we want to create. So this is very, very important. You don't sit there and beg and pray and hope that things are going to come in place for you, but instead you go to work learning the laws that are going to govern how your life is going to function. And so very, very important. Let's keep going. Now, we have a number of different laws that we are going to be studying throughout the course of the next few weeks. And I'm just going to list the ones that we're going to be looking at very specifically. So we're going to be looking at the law of cause and effect, the law of sacrifice, the law of non-resistance, the law of forgiveness, the law of vacuum, the law of compensation, the law of gestation, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, the law of polarity or opposites, the law of gender, the law of rhythm, the law of obedience, the law of thinking, the law of supply, law of vibration, law of attraction, law of receiving, law of increase. Now, these are a number of different laws that we are going to be exploring together. And so I want to invite you to continue to follow this content. Again, if you want to go ahead and you want to study this content on your own, then I've just listed a number of the laws that you can start doing research on those. But there are two books that I also want to recommend to you as well. One is Working with the Law, which is this one right here. So it's Working with the Law with Raymond Hallowell. And there's another one called The Game of Life by Florence Shin. Two excellent pieces of content that you can begin to study so that you can better understand these universal laws. Again, it is going to be imperative that you understand these, because as you do, you'll be better able to produce the results that you want to produce for your life. But today, all we're looking at is a basic introduction, which I've just ran through a while ago. And next week, Monday, we will jump into one of those laws specifically. So again, I invite you to join me again next week, Monday. I also come on live on Wednesday, because on Wednesday, I'm going to be looking a little bit into specifically the system that I've personally used to generate the bulk of results, over 99% of results that I've seen in my business. We're going to be looking at that together. And so I invite you to join me on Wednesday as we're going to be exploring exactly how I've been able to create the results I've been able to create in my business. More specifically, how I was able to get my income into the top 10% of the coach's income across the world, which is amazing. And so we're going to be looking at that system together, how I was able to do that, and look specifically into the system, the actual system that I use. So I invite you to join me on Wednesday. And that's pretty much it for today. Again, go ahead, rewatch this if you need to. And if you want to continue studying this on your own, again, grab those 2 pieces of content that I suggested, those 2 books that I recommended, and join me again on Mondays as I'm going to be digging into these more specifically. I'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, this is Coach Chris saying, write your own destiny.